presenting a new budget on February 1st. And I think this will be the first budget in history where health is perhaps the most important single issue that will concern us. There have been lots of people saying that, because of COVID, we are in this deep recession and she needs to give another big stimulus to keep the economy going. I would disagree. The biggest stimulus you can give this economy is to lift the pall of fear. People are so worried about infection that people will not go out to malls, they will not go shopping, they will not travel, they will not go on pilgrimages, they will not go out for entertainment. So we have an economy which, having been very hard hit, is on the road to recovery. The agricultural scene is pretty good, the monsoon was pretty good. Industry is picking up and has gone into positive territory. But services are more than 50% of GDP. And services are things like travel, air travel, pilgrimage, going to entertainment. All of these, I'm afraid, are still seriously negative. Why are they seriously negative? There's no shortage of supply, but people are afraid. So fear is the biggest depressant. Ending the fear will be the greatest stimulant for the economy. Therefore, the budget's immediate aim must be vaccinate as many people as quickly as possible and then have a campaign blitz to tell people it is now safe. You can start again. The vaccine rollout is taking place, but we still need to make sure. I mean, the logistics of getting to all Indians is a huge job. So it's a very major job to make sure that the vaccines, they may have been stockpiled, but they have to now reach out in refrigerated condition to each corner, every panchayat, every single area. So it needs to be done with a minimum of red tape, and it needs to be done with easy flow of funds. I mean, Nirmala Sitharaman has to make quite sure that there is no blockage of funds because they say, where is this receipt? Where is that permit? Where is this particular clearance? Where is that form? So you have to make sure there is a very rapid rollout of finance, very rapid rollout of the vaccine to get to as many people as possible. And the fact is, you don't need to get to 100% vaccination for safety. If you have no more than 70% of the population is either vaccinated or recovering from infection and therefore already has antibodies, if you get to 70% of such relative immunity, then you have what's called herd immunity. The speed of transmission of the disease goes down enormously. So instead of being highly infectious, it suddenly becomes a very mildly infectious disease, perhaps no more so than influenza. So if we can just get to that 70% level, then we can tell everybody, look, now it is as safe to go out and do things as when there was influenza. You will have to persuade people. There will have to be a campaign at every level. You will have to use every kind of audiovisual media, television, radio. Mr. Modi will have to speak to the people on Man Ki Baat. So the combination, first you have to roll it out. People have to see that everybody is getting vaccinated. That has to be then followed up by saying, now enough people have been vaccinated, go out and travel, go by air, go by train, go shopping, go for entertainment, go to theaters, go on pilgrimages, go and visit your friends. We really return back to normal on the services front. So as I said, on agriculture, there is nothing that Sitharaman urgently needs to do. There is an agitation going on which a negotiation is going on, and that is a non-budget issue. But so agriculture is there, industry is recovering nicely. There is no special push that I would urge her to put. Just leave the rates pretty stable as they are. But for services, we need to recover. And for services, the most important thing is you need to end the atmosphere of fear. And if you can end that atmosphere of fear by a combination of mass vaccination and good publicity, then the services economy will revive in a big way and GDP can really soar. We have the potential to have record GDP growth of 10 to 12% in the coming year if you are able to do all these things right. So I said, and if you have 10 to 12% growth of economy, can you imagine there'll be such a boom in revenues? and that will then really take care of all kinds of fiscal issues. So this then has to be the focus on COVID. Make sure that the vaccines get everywhere. Make sure that fear disappears, and you will find that this is the best possible stimulus. Please do not go for a big fiscal further stimulus. Please remember what happened to Mr. Pranab Mukherjee after the 2008-9 crisis. At that time, he went for a very big fiscal stimulus, and everybody applauded and said, well done, because we need a big fiscal stimulus to get out of the recession. I mean, that is classic macroeconomics. But after that, what happened? He and subsequent finance ministers tried and tried and tried to get the fiscal deficit down to the target of 3%. Until today, they didn't succeed. 11 years after, they were unable to get it down. So once you let go of that thing, getting it down later really becomes very difficult. And now that we are armed with this knowledge, I think this is why Nirmala Sitharaman kept a tight lid on the fiscal deficit for the current year. Many people said, please spend much, much more on infrastructure, on relief, just give purchasing power to people. I will say that I was among those who also said the fiscal deficit could have been larger. You could have had more of a push. But be that as it may, that particular phase of deep distress is over. Agriculture industry have recovered. The main thing is to get fear out of the way. Now, so in these circumstances, in retrospect, the good thing is that the fiscal deficit, if it is unfudged, if there's been always been a lot of fudging on what is exactly the fiscal deficit. There is a formal fiscal deficit shown, but there are two ways of evading it. One is simply by having borrowing, not directly by the government itself, but by various public sector undertakings and other subsidiary departments. And that is real borrowing, but doesn't show up as government borrowing. And the second, of course, is to you delay your payments. The Food Corporation of India, I think, was owed more than 1 lakh crore rupees. Every single department owes very large sums to various suppliers. So in these ways, we have been fudging the deficit. I would say this is a golden opportunity for Nirmala Sitharaman to clean up the government books, get rid of all the fudging, and announce what is the full unfudged deficit. It may be as high as 8% of GDP, 7 to 8% of GDP, more than double the budgeted 3.5%. Never mind, say because of COVID, we went ahead and we are now going to clean up. And now that we have cleaned up, in future, we are going to have a credible budget where the figures can actually be believed by everybody. This is important for her credibility. And if you have credibility, that itself will tend to bring down interest rates and attract more foreign capital. So I said a return to credibility is required. Then if you return to credibility, what should we be aiming for? I would say if the current year's fiscal deficit turns out to be 7 to 8%, for next year, she can aim to bring it down by 2 percentage points to 5 to 7%. 5 to 6%, sorry, 5 to 6%. Now, 5 to 6% is still a large deficit, much, much more than the 3%, which is the target of the FRBM. But nevertheless, we need a large, it is a fall from 8%, and we need to spend money on two items on a one-off manner so that this reduces automatically the next year. The one thing we need to do it, of course, is vaccination should be provided free of charge, and all the different people whom you are asking to do the vaccination in the vaccination centers, all the people who are moving the vaccine, the refrigeration being provided, the health facilities, the nursing, all of the stuff, payment should be made easily, quickly, and massively. So as you need free vaccination for the consumer, and you need quick payment for all the suppliers in the supply chain. And this will be a substantial sum of money. I wouldn't be surprised if you add it all up together, it may go up to 100,000 crores. The second thing you have to face up to is recapitalization of the banking system. You will remember when we had the Great Recession in 2008-9, it produced what the then Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramanian called the twin balance sheet crisis. What did that mean? It meant that the companies in the good days had borrowed too much. And suddenly when hit by the Great Recession, they were unable to repay their loans because their debt was too much. And when they were unable to repay their loans on such a massive scale, that then hit the balance sheets of the banks. Therefore, banks stop lending. So this combination of a crisis of the balance sheets of the companies, followed by a crisis in the balance sheets of the banks, produced a situation where what you might call normal liquidity and lending still has not resumed. All the all the NPAs, all the bad debts of the banks, they have not yet been taken care of, removed. All those various companies in winding up in resolution, all that resolution is still taking place. It hasn't finished. And this is 11 years after 2008-9. This recession, the COVID recession, is even bigger than the other recession. The impact of this, therefore, on the twin balance sheets is going to be even more. Even more companies are going to find that it's going to be difficult for them to repay their loans. And this, in turn, is going to create a problem for the banks, that our balance sheets are so bad that we won't be able to lend more. Therefore, there should be a massive provision by Nirmala Sitharaman of it, I would say maybe up to 100,000 crores in 1 year alone to recapitalize the public sector banks, enable them to clean up their books and declare that NPAs honestly, not try any more ever greening, no more pretending that the debts will be repaid. Clean that up, and then we can start lending again on a large scale on a clean slate. So these are the two things that she has to provide large sums for. The vaccination program and all the suppliers, and recapitalization of banks. These are going to be two very heavy items of spending. I think they should stand out, but they will be one-off. They will be required in the year 21-22. But after that, expenditure on them will automatically go. So you will be able to bring the fiscal deficit down from the next year. Then it can come down to 4%, and then you can glide down to 3%, which is the target. So this, I think, should be a medium-term strategy that she should be sketching out on the overall macroeconomic situation. Which are the other areas? Well, she has been emphasizing, Prime Minister has been emphasizing, everybody has been emphasizing infrastructure. We have a situation that because of this deep recession, there is excess capacity in a lot of industry. So industries are not in a hurry to invest very massively because they say, let demand pick up first, let my excess capacity go, then I will invest again. Till then, the job of investment has to shift to the government in a big way. And Nirmala Sitharaman has said, yes, we are going to invest more in infrastructure. The problem is that if you want to invest certainly in new infrastructure, the waiting time can be 2 years, 3 years. You have to hold public hearings, all kinds of plans. You have to get environmental clearance. You go to health clearance. You have to, the totality of starting a greenfield infrastructure can take 2 years, 3 years. So if you want to quickly spend money, it cannot be done by new infrastructure. The only way to have quick spending on infrastructure is a massive repair and rehabilitation program of existing infrastructure. And frankly, that itself needs a lot of repair, needs a lot of rehabilitation. Some of it can also be upgraded in the process to increase its capacity. So the focus of the infrastructure thing should be on repair, rehabilitation. I think on this it will be possible to spend a large sum of money. Next priority, privatization, for heaven's sake, finally started. We have talked about it. We have talked about it. Last year, she gave a list of 4 companies. Nothing happened. Now, frankly, you cannot blame her. The COVID crisis hit. The stock markets plunged. Nobody was willing to put money out. So the markets froze. Now the markets have revived again. Now that they've revived again, those 4 companies that were up for disinvestment plus Air India, you need to get that out of the way. And she needs in the budget to make an advance announcement of at least 4 more companies to be privatized during the year, on which the privatization work, the requests, the request for inquiries must go out very, very quickly so that we can start this process and gain credibility on the process. The good thing is that the stock market has picked up. India is a favorite of the global markets. Money has been pouring in. The stock market is soaring. The IPO market is doing well. You will never have a better time to go all out on privatization. It's going to be the opposite of the COVID year. So this post-COVID year should be the year of privatization. It needs to be done in a massive way. And I hope uh, this will set the ball rolling for subsequent years also, so that it ceases to be a kind of as though privatization is the climbing of Mount Everest. It should not be so difficult. It should be something that rolls out smoothly month after month, IPO after IPO, just as has been done for the private sector. What then should be done about the tax system? I would say the focus should be on stability. As far as indirect taxes are concerned, most of them are already gone to GST. It is not under her control. What is under her control is the direct taxes on the income tax, the corporate tax, and I would say stability. Please do not change anything. There are some people who will say that, to relieve people, why don't you raise the tax exemption limit? The tax exemption limit in India is already several times higher than per capita GDP. Whereas in other countries, tends to be around per capita GDP. So in India, our exemption limit is already too high. Of course, the BJP caters to the middle class, and you may say that this is the BJP's natural constituency. But please, it should not change. So I would urge no change. On the corporate tax rate, she already gave the tax break for corporates last year. There is no need to change that either. So I would say direct taxes hold steady. What about the taxes on pets and cesses on petrol? A very large amount was put to finance COVID. I would say you continue with it till such time as the crisis continues. Uh, but do not be in a hurry to reduce those cesses and the taxes on petrol and diesel and other petroleum products. The economy is picking up. You need the revenue. This is one revenue item which has served you well in the current financial year. I mean, there can be a small token cut, if you like, which will get a certain amount of applause. But we did need the government to mop up a lot of this windfall that we got in the fall in world oil prices, and that should, I think, continue. Then there are import duties. What should happen to import duties? Now, these have been rising and rising and rising in the last 3-4 years, to the point where India is frankly has become an inward-looking protectionist country. Atmanirbhar, according to Mr. Modi, does not mean inward-looking protectionism. It means making India an export hub. But please, if you are going to have high taxes on imports, then you are creating a high-cost economy which cannot export. One of the great truths of economics is that a tax on imports will turn into a tax on exports because of its undesirable side effects. It raises all the costs of components, and it will create conditions where you cannot sell. Therefore, let us attempt to get the import duty. Was an average of 10% of total imports, has gone up to 14. Let us try in stages to get it down towards 10. The problem is that she has already announced the scheme of production-linked incentives for a dozen sectors. It started with cell phones, and now it's going to all a series of other textiles and solar panels, a large number of them. Now, a production-linked incentive of 4 to 6% for 5 years. Okay, if you want to kickstart these with this kind of incentive, go ahead. But I think all of them are also going to say that, for cell phones, you gave import protection of up to 20%. So you please give us also import protection of up to 20% for all the inputs. This will be a very bad strategy, especially because some of these are not new industries. Things like textile, for instance, is there anything new about it? It's the oldest industry in the world, second oldest profession in the world. Some people call textiles. So I said, you need to avoid the temptation. Already you are giving them this big incentive in the form of production-linked incentive on the output, 4 to 6%. Do not double up and then give enormous increases in import duty on all their inputs. If you do that, then I am afraid we are in danger of slipping into the same problem that we faced in the 1970s, where imports were made very difficult and very expensive in the name of import substitution, in the name of self-sufficiency. And that self-sufficiency was an economic disaster. Instead of getting fast economic growth, we got this slow 3.5%, which is called the Hindu rate of growth. So we need to avoid that. Therefore, we need to say, do not give in to the temptation of the demands of every industry for raising import duties. say, on the other hand, let us try and improve productivity in various ways. Let us improve productivity, which has already happened up to a point through various of the incentives that you have given. But over and above that, for instance, our electricity rates are so expensive. They are among the most expensive in the world. Why? Because farmers and others got free electricity and very, very high rates were loaded on industry as a cross subsidy. So that the formal policy now is to get rid of those cross subsidies. That is again a cross subsidy on rail freight rates to subsidize rail passengers. So all these cross subsidies increase the cost of production for export. So these are the things you need to remove those cross subsidies. It can only be done in stages. And I hope a few stages are sketched out by Ms. Sita Raman in this particular budget. So this then should be the budget. It should not be a populist budget. It should not be something which attempts to say, I give you so much, so much, so much, so much. You can talk about spending in the right way. But the focus above all should be that this is a way of getting rid of COVID. This is a way of vaccinating the whole economy. This is the way of ending fear. And ending fear is going to be the best thing that anybody can possibly do. And therefore, the budget, the finance minister, and the prime minister will push all that they can behind a budget which goes towards lifting fear to re-stimulate the economy. That should be